Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to my front porch. My wife thought it'd be a great idea if we got a webcam. And instead of having to read these messages, you could just click a button and you'd have them videotaped for you. I don't know what kind of idea that's going to end up being. I find myself out here on the porch, so I get away from the dog barking, the vacuum cleaner going, and instead we have airplanes flying over and cars driving by. I have neighbors looking at me thinking I'm crazy because I'm talking into a laptop computer on my front porch. So let's see how this goes. I guess the end will decide whether it was worth it. Maybe you can be the judge of that. You know, for a lot of Christians, I think this has to be one of the most beloved stories in the Bible. Mary walks in with a bottle of really expensive perfume and she anoints Jesus' feet. I think it's easy to imagine the scene as Mary gets on her knees and pours the lotion into the cracked, calloused feet of Jesus. And to put things into perspective, this perfume is worth about 300 days' work. It's not the cheap stuff my brother and I bought it at Binkley's 5 and 10 when my mom had her birthdays. This was some really expensive perfume that took the average worker almost a year to afford just that one bottle. And maybe that's one reason that this story is so beloved. That a woman would pour this expensive perfume on someone's feet. And when that person is Jesus, I think it's easy to understand that this really is a true love story. The story of someone who cared so deeply that she was willing to trade it all in, to pour it all away for a scent of heaven. And there are a lot of lessons to be learned from this. You know, just about all of them have to do with love and hope and all the things that come with that. But I think I'm going to go kind of on a sidetrack and then hopefully come back to that. So if that's what you were expecting, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but we will come back. And it's not that this story isn't about hope and love and God's warmth and his compassion for us, because it is. And I think that's why it's not by accident that this story is read just a few weeks before Easter, just a few weeks before Jesus' death and his resurrection. But I'm a cop, and I like to see what the villain is up to in the stories that I read. And I probably can't help myself, 25 years in this job, and one tends to focus on the bad guys. And the bad guy is in this story, he's easy to find. In fact, we don't have to go searching for him at all. He comes right out and introduces himself to us. It's Judas. The same guy who will eventually betray Jesus. He's the money handler for the group. He's the one that the disciples gave money to when they had it coming in, and he's the one who paid the bills for them as they went from town to town. And it wasn't unusual for Judas to pay himself what he thought he was worth each day from that money that was coming in. But Jesus cuts him off when he mentions how this perfume can be better used if it's sold, how it can be used to help the poor. And you got to wonder, did Jesus see right through this sham? Or was he really trying to convey a message to everyone there? Or maybe both. If you're like me, you try to figure out what the bad guy's motives were. How he's going to get away with this, if he's going to get caught. We tend to focus on that, making sure that he doesn't get away with it, that he gets caught. Sorry, the wind's blowing and I'm not sure this camera's going to stay there, so bear with me here. But I think if we're not careful, that focus turns into a passion. And that passion can turn into an obsession. And that's not healthy. What if we really do start focusing on the bad guy? What if we focus on the negative whatever that surrounds any situation? And I can't be the only one whose thoughts are centered on what's wrong, that I can miss the good that surrounds it. But that's what we do, don't we? We think of ways to get even, ways to make them pay. And revenge tastes so sweet. Our thoughts are occupied with our troubles, with those who are causing them, and with the ways to get out of them that I think we miss some really good things that are happening in our lives. And we just might miss the message altogether. I know for me it's been difficult lately trying to sort out a lot of negative thoughts about stuff going on in my life. Whether they're thoughts about people we think that screwed us over, or thoughts about defending our own actions, we can be consumed with negative emotions. And I know if I focus on on what I'm going through, on what the outcome might be down the road. I miss the time that I have now to enjoy life, and I miss an opportunity to grow. If I hold on to all the negative crap in my life, bad things tend to happen. And earlier this week, a bunch of you gave me a list of all the bad things that can happen if we hold on to resentment and anger. And that list included things such as poison and burden and difficulty. Used words like killer, trash, cancer, and even toxic. And that's a pretty impressive list. You know, we know we're not supposed to carry it around. We know it's unhealthy. And yet, it's hard to let go of. And if you're like me, and you only focused on the bad guy in today's passage, together we'd miss the rest of the story. We'd miss the story of a woman on her knees in front of stinking, swollen, cracked feet, who, while everyone else stood around and watched, poured her heart out in a way that we can only imagine. We'd miss Jesus' message about anticipation and honor, that even in the face of death, humility and compassion can still serve us well. And in that timeless song, it's only after what he sees and hears does Louis Armstrong conclude what a wonderful world this could be. And we would miss the fact that this really is a wonderful world. But the good news is that in these last few weeks before Easter, we can choose to see the whole story. We can see the good that can somehow come out of a hopeless situation. By seeing the trees, and the roses, and the clouds in people's faces. Even by hearing a baby's cry. We can come to the same conclusion as Louis Armstrong. And we'll be sure not to miss a scent of heaven. Well, that's it for this week, everybody. God bless. See you next time.